Oh, hey everybody! Hello YouTube land. Kevin Boothby here, and we got a fun little video for you this week. This all started when I found some sawdust around the base of the silverware cabinet, and suddenly I was terrified that maybe my boat had become infested with termites. So anyway, I started investigating that. And one thing led to another, which led to another, and before I knew it, I had a good part of the galley torn apart, and just all kinds of fun ensued. So those of you who own boats, especially older boats, I'm sure you'll be able to relate to much of this. And hopefully I'm not going to scare off too many people who are thinking of buying a boat, especially a second-hand boat. But this is the reality, and it's always fun. So let's dive right into this and take a look at what happened. So for this week's episode of This Old Boat, we're going to title it One Thing Leads to Another. As you can see, I got all the cabinetry pulled out, and most of it's sitting out here in the cockpit. And where this started was I started seeing little trails of kind of sawdust, and I was worried that I had termites in here. So I took all the cabinetry apart, but so far I can't find any evidence of where it is, so I'm still not sure about that problem yet. But in order to get all this furniture apart, I discovered more rot right by the sink pump here. And this is after I all cleaned it up. You can still see a lot of rotted wood in here, but I've almost got it back to healthy wood. And I had to saw this. This normally went up. The countertop went to the bulkhead here. So we're going to have to figure out a way to repair that. But the first thing is always you got to get all the dead wood out, and then work on how to repair it. Of course, the most permanent repair is to pull this whole countertop off and make a new one, but that's a boatyard job. So I think what I'm going to do is put some kind of a Dutchman. It's just epoxy, a piece of wood in here, to finish the countertop, and then we'll put wood preservative in here, glue in a Dutchman, seal everything up, and put the furniture back together. So now I think we've actually gotten to the heart of the first problem, which is this is the silverware cabinet, and I think what was in there was a wood roach, and I read on Wikipedia that they feed on rotted wood. And when I take this bottom piece off the silverware cabinet, you can see this is all rotted wood here. So that's probably what the roach was feeding on. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to cut off this rotted wood. And we still have enough good wood here to keep this piece in place. So with that, we'll be able to put it back together. Just saw off the dead wood, put it back together, and it should be fine. It's not going to make any difference in function or appearance. But we want to clear all this rot away so it doesn't continue to spread. And one thing leading to another, speaking of which. And so to do this job properly, I had to remove this as well, mainly just to clean this area out with all the rotted wood. So then what we're going to do is, found a nice little piece of timber here I had under the cockpit lockers. It looks like that's going to fit pretty nicely, just right in there. So we'll mark that. Okay, so we got that. So now we just have to saw that out, and we'll have a little piece of wood to glue in there. Alright, so let's see how we did here. Got our little piece of wood cut out. I'll just slide that in. So that's pretty nice. It's going to fit right like a glove there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put a little wood preservative in here because there's still, I don't know if I quite got it all the rotted wood. So I'm going to slather some wood preservative in here, and hopefully that'll stop any fungus that's left in there. It'll kill it. And then we're going to epoxy our Dutchman back in and start putting everything back together again. Okay, so we're almost ready to start gluing here, and but first we got to clean everything out, get out all the sawdust and remaining bits of rotted wood there. I'll use the shop vac to get that all cleaned up, and then we'll start mixing up the epoxy. So now we got the epoxy mixed, and we're definitely going to want to use epoxy in this application because the plywood underneath that off-white countertop, the laminate, the Formica laminate on top, since that plywood is rotted, there's quite a few nooks in there and gaps that we're going to want to fill, and I'm just going to inject epoxy in there. So that's why I'm using the little syringe tool. And just get tons of epoxy in there, and that'll also serve to seal it off so the water doesn't get back in there and continue to rot the plywood underneath. And finally, we're going to have to slather epoxy on the Dutchman, a little piece of wood we cut out. Right now I'm just figuring out which way it's going to go in, and now I'm realizing that I probably shouldn't do it there because I'm going to drip epoxy on the countertop. So I moved it over to the chart table where I have some paper laid down. It's always a challenge when your home is also a workshop and then back to being your home again. So you got to be careful about what kind of a mess you make. Just we got the Dutchman in, and just continuing to slather epoxy, get epoxy down in there, and fill all those gaps. So that'll be sealed off, and hopefully prevent the spread of any further rot. Okay. So the Dutchman is epoxied in place, and we're ready to start putting things back together. I have the caulking gun out here, and that's 3M marine silicone sealant. And what I'm trying to prevent here is water splashing over from the sink and from the pump from getting down between the bulkhead and the plywood countertop. That's what was causing the rot, is that constant water was getting down in there, and it was the constant wet, dry, and that, especially in a warm tropical climate, that'll cause the fungus, which rots wood, to spread very quickly. So we're going to try to prevent that from happening again. And finally, we have all the furniture screwed back together, and we just have to put the bungs, and those are decorative. Just put the bungs in the countersunk screw holes there, just to make it look nice. And for those of you who are not familiar with the technique here, you put the bung in the wooden plug, and then you want to get your chisel lined up with the grain. So when you tap it with the hammer, the direction you're tapping in is going parallel to the grain of the bung. And if you get it right, the bung should just shear right off and be nice and flush with the surface. So you're not going to have to sand like crazy to try to get it flush. And I didn't quite get it on that one. You see, I went over it with the chisel just to get it flush. We're moving right along, so we're on the last one here. Just tap the bung so it's firmly in place. And do not glue bungs in place. Otherwise, it'll be quite difficult to remove them later. Just put them in there. Sometimes put a little bit of varnish in there. I just use friction to hold them in. And then use your chisel to shear it off. And then all you have left to do is varnish. And here we are, just slapping on some varnish and finishing up the job.